Husband abandoned me while I lay helpless in our home, then blamed me, revealing the facade I never noticed before. I've been married for a few years now, and we have a baby together. After the baby was born, we hit some rough patches in our relationship, but I honestly thought we had moved past them. He promised he'd be better, more present, more thoughtful, and I believed him. To give him credit, he did start picking up his share of the chores. I never had to ask, he just did what needed to be done, quietly and without complaint. But something inside me never fully settled. There was this persistent feeling, almost too quiet for me to notice most days, that something wasn't quite right. I never really explored that nagging sensation, I just kept moving forward, brushing it off. Until recently, when it hit me with unexpected clarity, he never actually showed me any extra care. If anything, he seemed to get frustrated with me whenever I needed something or caused him even the mildest inconvenience. How did I not notice this until now? Just 2 days ago, I started feeling sick. That terrible gross, thick-skinned feeling washed over me, along with dizzy spells and lightheadedness that I couldn't really name. By the evening, I was shivering and freezing. Still, I managed to function, so I tried not to make a big deal of it. I complained to my husband about how I was feeling, and then we just went to bed. The next morning, I woke up feeling like my bones were made of lead. I don't even know how I pulled myself through the day, it was all on autopilot. Before my baby woke up, my boss messaged me with some tasks, and I did them on my phone in bed. Then I rolled out, somehow got my sister off to school, made it back home, and kept working. Usually, I bounce back and forth, handling work, caring for my 1-year-old, but yesterday I just lay on the floor, working in a haze while my baby watched Ms. Rachel. Later, I managed to pick my sister up, come home, make dinner, and by the time my husband walked through the door, I was dead on my feet. Anytime I tried to move, it felt like I was lagging physically, my body somehow behind my intentions. I told him, several times, how terrible I felt. We ate dinner, and afterward, I put the leftovers away and put the baby to sleep. My husband disappeared into his office to do some quick work. From here, my memory gets patchy. The next thing I remember, I was in his office, barely able to talk. We exchanged a few words, I can't recall what, and suddenly I woke up alone on the office floor. I felt so heavy and disconnected. It took remarkable effort to get up. When I stumbled out, I found the house dark. Every light was off, the kitchen hadn't been touched. He was already in bed. I just stood there in the kitchen, realizing with a kind of clarity that hurt, he genuinely doesn't care. I could already predict that he wouldn't clean the kitchen the next day, and that he didn't care at all about how sick I felt. I had a packed schedule for the next day and no time to deal with a pile of dirty dishes, so I loaded the dishwasher myself, dragging my feet the whole time, and finally crawled into bed. Not 5 minutes later, my husband snapped at me, furious, that I'd left the kitchen lights on. I had no energy left to deal with him, so I just ignored him and fell straight asleep. This morning, I woke up drenched in sweat, but that awful, sick feeling had finally lifted. That's when the realization hit me, I hadn't just been tired, I was genuinely ill. Meanwhile, my husband was still angry with me. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't look at me, stomping around the house like a petulant child. I tried to ask him about the night before, and he just muttered about how I'd confused him. Suddenly, all the little memories from before came crashing down. I realized, with something close to horror, that he has never once taken care of me, never gone out of his way if it involved even the slightest inconvenience. Every time I've gotten sick, it's been like this, he gets upset with me somehow, as if my illness is a personal slight. I remembered what happened after I had our baby. He was angry that the house wasn't kept up, but when I pushed myself too hard and fainted from exhaustion just 2 weeks postpartum, he yelled at me, saying I did it to myself and it was my fault for not taking better care of myself, even though, just 2 days before, he was angry that I hadn't kept up with the laundry and insisted I clean the kitchen because it was starting to smell and he refused to cook anymore. And don't even get me started on how he never once got up at night for the baby. All these memories just hit me, and I felt this wave of disgust. How did I not see this before? How did I not recognize what was right in front of me? I honestly don't even know what to do now. I have to stop here before I get too lost in these thoughts. Update 1. I went to the hospital that day. So many people around me seemed to suspect that my husband might have messed with something, but no, according to what the doctors said, nothing came up. But what did come up was my blood pressure, way too high. The doctor recommended I see a cardiologist, and now I have to wait a whole month before my appointment. When my husband got home from work, he was acting like everything was completely normal, like I hadn't just fainted the night before. I wanted to see if he would bring it up at all, if he even cared. Nothing. So, once the baby was settled for the night, I asked him why I woke up alone in his office. Instantly, he got angry, like it annoyed him that I even dared mention it. He told me I was acting confusing, asked what he was supposed to do. Apparently, I should have told him what I wanted from him. When I explained I'd gone to the hospital, he said that was a bit much. I told him what the doctor had said, about signs of heart issues likely caused by stress, but he blew up at me. "You're causing your own early grave," he yelled, blaming me for not taking better care of myself. With that, he shut himself away in his room, left me alone to clean up after dinner, again. That night, I decided not to do it. I went to the couch, put on a movie, tried to feel human again. Not long after, he came out, suddenly being all friendly and flirty. He tried to lay with me, asked what I was doing, kept acting cute. When I didn't respond, his mood switched, he got angry, stormed off, locked me out of the bedroom. The next morning, he woke me slamming things around the kitchen, cussing that I couldn't even clean the kitchen right. I just went back to the bedroom and tried to sleep, but it was impossible. He kept finding ways to keep me awake. He complained later that day about being hungry because I didn't make him breakfast or lunch. I gave myself a break. No work, no house chores. I just spent time with our baby, went to the park, the library, even visited my in-laws. Tried to talk to my mother-in-law about my heart issues, but she just said, "Poor husband's name, he's probably going to stress about this." That was when it really hit me, I couldn't do this anymore. That night, I brought home pizza for dinner, got home right after my husband. He was visibly upset and it felt different this time, a sharper edge. He cleaned the kitchen with so much noise, muttering under his breath. I washed our daughter, put her to bed, trying not to let my anxiety show. When I came out, he started talking aggressively about how I've become lazy, how he won't accept my lack of effort, insisted that relationships are a two-way street. I couldn't take it anymore. I started yelling back, reminded him that I cook, clean, manage his child, and work on top of it, and how is it that I'm the one that's lazy when he always expects more from me? Things escalated very quickly. He started throwing dishes at me. When there was nothing left to throw, he choked me. Then he left the house. I called the police, hands shaking. My baby woke up crying, neighbors showed up after hearing the yelling and the sound of breaking glass. It was chaos. When he finally came back home, he tried to say the whole thing was my fault, that I did everything, even the bruises around my neck, he claimed were self-inflicted. I'm still trying to process how fast it all unraveled. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I'd just sucked it up, if I hadn't rebelled. Would my marriage be fine now? Therapy is coming up, my first session is scheduled for next Tuesday. I'll get the chance to pour this all out then. My husband is now staying at his mom's. I'm at my grandmother's place, with almost all of my things out of our apartment. There's a temporary restraining order in place, and the official hearing is tomorrow morning. I'm scared, honestly. I haven't seen him since that night. My daughter keeps asking where her dad is, and I don't know what to say. I feel numb to it all. I could write so much more about what happened, but it already feels so long, and I don't want to cry again. Looking back at everything, I honestly don't know if I would have called the police if I hadn't reached my breaking point. This is the scariest thing he's ever done to me, but there have been so many other things over the years, too. Even when I was just venting, it was like a little push to finally do something. All I really have is my little sister and my grandmother. I can't tell my grandmother any of these details, she's just too frail and sensitive. My dad died as an alcoholic, driving under the influence, and after that my mom left for a guy in Russia. I don't even know how she's doing. She used to treat me and my sister so poorly that I don't even care. All I can think right now is, thank you. Those who've shown me kindness, I never expected how much it would mean. Update 2. The hearing was this morning. I barely slept, just lay there listening to my daughter breathe, touching the fading marks on my neck and trying not to think too far ahead. I got dressed like I was going to a job interview, hair pinned back, clothes that didn't look like I had slept on a couch last week. My neighbor came with me. She was the one who knocked that night when she heard the glass. I don't think I understood how much that would matter until I was sitting outside the courtroom and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. He was already there. Fresh haircut, ironed shirt, his mom at his shoulder like a brooch. He looked straight through me and smiled, tiny and flat, like we'd run into each other at a grocery store. I kept my eyes on the floor and counted the squares. When they called our names, it felt like I was walking underwater. The judge was calm. I told the truth. I didn't embellish. I said what he did, what I felt, how it looked, how it sounded. I showed the photos the officer took. I didn't look at him. I stared at the top of the judge's bench and tried to keep my voice from breaking at the stupidest part, which was that my daughter woke up crying and I had to choose between comforting her and calling the police. He said I made it all up. He said I bruise easily. He said I'd been spiraling and that he was scared of me, which would have been funny if the courtroom didn't feel like a refrigerator. The judge asked him a simple question, why he left, and he slipped, got sarcastic, rolled his eyes. A bailiff shifted his weight in a way that made everything go quiet. They played the 911 recording. I didn't know they were going to do that. Hearing my voice sounded like hearing someone else's mouth move. My neighbor testified. She said she heard me yell. She said she saw him leave and come back. She said she saw my neck. His mom shook her head at me from behind him and whispered to him, and the judge told her to stop. He got red at his throat and for a second I saw the face I recognize, the one that comes out when the dishwasher isn't loaded right. The judge granted it. 1 year. No contact. He has to surrender his firearms. The order covers our daughter. The judge set temporary custody with me and told him visitation would be supervised at a center, twice a week, as long as there are openings. We have to use an app if there's anything urgent about our daughter, and the messages are monitored. He looked like he had to swallow something that didn't want to go down when the judge said that last part. I didn't cry until I walked into the hallway. His mom tried to approach me anyway, and the bailiff stepped between us and told me to keep moving. My neighbor squeezed my shoulder so hard it hurt, in a good way. He already tried to test the order. When I got back to my grandmother's, there were flowers on the front step with a card that said for peace. No name. The florist called the number on my phone when I asked, and said it was paid for by his mother. I called the non-emergency number and they told me to document it and log it in. I took photos and wrote the time down. I hate that I know what to do now. I went back to the apartment with an officer to get the last few things that mattered. My daughter's lovey. The baby monitor. My husband's office door was open and I could see the line in the drywall where a plate hit and skidded. The smell in the kitchen was lemon cleaner and something sharp. I left my keys on the counter and walked out without looking back, which felt like acting in a play. My hands shook the whole time I buckled my daughter in. Therapy was yesterday. The therapist was kind and quiet and did not look away when I stumbled through it. She said the word strangled out loud and it moved something inside me that had been stuck. I told her about my heart. I told her how I keep waking up at 3 a.m. convinced there's a hand over my mouth even when the room is empty. I left with a list of follow-ups I actually want to keep. When I sat in the car afterward, the silence felt heavy and good, like rain. I bought a cheap blood pressure cuff and wrote the numbers down in a notebook with silly flowers on it. They drop when I'm at the park and climb when the phone rings with an unknown number. I have the cardiologist in a few weeks. I'm not ignoring it. The supervised visit center called. Orientation is this Friday. I have to bring my daughter early to walk her through it, to show her the toys in the room so it doesn't feel like a punishment. She keeps asking where her dad is. I've been saying he's at his house. She's 1.5. Sometimes she pats my neck and says owie. And I have to breathe slow and not scare her. Work told me I could take some time. I told my boss I'd be back next week, just part-time at first. I can't afford to stop, but I also can't carry everything at once. My grandmother sits with my daughter and falls asleep with her on the couch in the afternoons, their soft snores layered over each other like a harmony. A detective called about the case. I have to meet with him tomorrow. He used my name in a way that made me feel like I didn't have to shrink to fit inside it. I don't know what will happen with charges. I am trying to let other people do what they are supposed to do so I can do what I'm supposed to do, which is keep my daughter fed and clean and kissed on the head, and keep my heart beating inside my own chest. Tonight was quiet. I made eggs and toast because that's what I had and because it was easy and because my grandmother ate every bite and then asked for more jam like she was doing me a favor. My daughter danced on the tile and clapped for herself, and when the house went dark after her bedtime, nobody yelled about lights. The silence was a fact, not a threat. I felt it like air moving through a room that finally has a window open. I don't know what happens next. Today was enough. Update 3, orientation at the visit center was Friday. The building used to be a dentist's office, waiting room chairs that leaned back a little too far, a play kitchen against the wall with the fake burners rubbed smooth. A woman in a cardigan met me at the door and said our names like she was testing how they fit in her mouth. She knelt to show my daughter the toy bins, the tiny sink, the bin of board books with teeth marks in all the corners. I kept my hands on my thighs because they were shaking and I didn't want her to see. They walked me through it, staggered drop-offs. He can't bring food without permission. No talking about me, no gifts larger than his 2 hands. Cameras in the corners with small red lights that blink like they were thinking. I signed my name 3 times and left a diaper bag with inventory written on an index card like I was packing her for summer camp instead of a room with padded corners and a staff member named Cora whose voice never rises above library. He was late to the first one. I sat in my car and watched a blackbird pick at the edge of a styrofoam cup under the curb until my phone buzzed. Arrived. My daughter had already forgotten I existed because Cora had a plastic stroller with a stuffed cat in it. I kissed the top of her head and breathed in cereal and shampoo and handed her over like I was stepping over water stones. The door closed. I went back to my car and held the steering wheel with 2 hands like I was driving even though the engine wasn't on. My phone lay face up on the passenger seat and the notifications from the app stacked up like a deck of cards. Drop off complete. Visit started. The minutes stretched. Someone parallel parked so badly I had to look away. After 20 minutes, the app buzzed again even though the visit was an hour. Visit ended early. I walked in and my daughter came out with her cheeks blotchy and a sticker on her shirt that said Great Helper. That she had already peeled and stuck to her sleeve. Cora's face was the kind of polite that has corners. She told me he brought a big bag of toys and a helium balloon even though balloons were on the list of no. He kept trying to get our daughter to say my name and then say tell mommy, and she stopped him twice and then again. He didn't like being stopped. He gave our daughter a folded piece of paper and tried to tuck it under her shirt and they took it before it touched her skin. We will document it, she said, and the way she said document sounded like putting a glass lid on a pot. The detective met me the next morning at a small table that still had sugar grains stuck in the lacquer from yesterday. He showed me a form and a tape measure, which I was not expecting. He measured the distance from the top of my sternum to the bottom edge of where the yellowing mark stopped and wrote a number down a lot like someone jotting down a grocery item. He told me the prosecutor filed charges. He used the word felony and my body reacted like the room had tilted even though it didn't. He said there would be an arraignment and that I might not have to be in the same room, that most of it would be on paper. He asked me if I'd had any contact since the order. I told him about the flowers and he nodded like he had expected to hear that and told me to keep logging things. He said you did the right thing in a tone I did not have to argue with. That afternoon the app pinged again. He wrote a message about our daughter's shoes, and how he worried that her ankles were rolling, and at first I almost responded like before, the way you do when you forget and try to be reasonable, but I deleted it and typed, "Thank you for your concern. I will discuss shoe options with her pediatrician." I felt like I had eaten gravel, but it was done. An hour later he sent 3 paragraphs about developmental milestones and how I was delaying her with television. The app put a little badge next to it that said, "Monitored." I closed it and put the phone in the freezer for a second because the cold made me laugh and I needed to feel something that wasn't a thin wire pulling all my muscles tight. CPS called and said they were opening a file and then told me in the same breath that because I had a TRO and had left and the police were involved and our daughter wasn't injured, it would likely close quickly. The woman on the phone had the patient voice of someone who is used to being listened to only halfway. I gave her the case number and our new address and spelled my last name twice. She said, "You're doing the protective things," and I said okay because I didn't know what you say. Back to that. My cardiologist appointment moved up because someone cancelled. I wore a sweater that buttoned down because they told me they might stick things to my chest, and they did, round cold circles that tug your skin a little when you move. They sent me home with a monitor and black leads that looked like seaweed against my ribs. My daughter pressed her finger against one of the stickers and then looked at me like she was waiting for it to beep, and when it didn't, she said boop and kissed it. My blood pressure dipped into a number that didn't scare me for the first time in 2 weeks while she watched a pigeon waddle across the parking lot like it had somewhere important to be. He violated the order again, or tried to, depending on how you count intent. The second visit, he showed up early, which meant we had to wait down the block so there wouldn't be overlap. He brought a photo album and tried to narrate our relationship over the pictures, our first apartment, the babies, first bath, and every few pages he had tucked little cards with messaging like a fortune cookie, "We belong together and forgive and forget," and the staff took the album and put it in a plastic tub with a number on the lid. He raised his voice. It didn't go high, it went narrower, like he was trying to push his words through a sieve. The supervisor wrote in her notes while she nodded at nothing. When they brought my daughter out, she had the same sticker again, but this time it was on her back. I realized they do that on purpose, put it where you'll find it later, like a small badge that says, "We saw you." I got served in the middle of slicing strawberries. The knock made my grandmother startle and drop her crossword. The man at the door had a face that has probably seen everything on porches, and he said my name like he wasn't asking. He handed me a stack of paper with a clip on the top that felt heavier than paper should. Motion to modify custody. His handwriting in the exhibits section underlined like it insisted. Allegations that I was alienating. Photos of our child in pajamas like that proved negligence. I took the papers and set them on the table and finished slicing the strawberries because my daughter had already dragged her plate close and was tapping the spot where the fruit should go with her spoon. I ate one and it tasted like nothing until the second one, which tasted like a strawberry again. I called the number for the advocate whose card is now in my wallet behind my driver's license. She told me I didn't have to read it alone. My boss sent me a message that said, "No need to respond," and then told me to put in my hours as I could and that she'd sent HR the line that my time might look strange for a bit because appointments are part of the work of staying. She dropped off a bag on the porch that had 3 freezer meals and a mug that said "World's Okayest Coworker." It made my grandmother laugh so hard she had to wipe her eyes on the corner of the dish towel. The detective called again today. They picked him up on the warrant after the prosecutor added a count for violating the order at the visit center. He made bail. The bond amount sounded like fake money to me. The conditions are stricter now. The app message box has a little line in it that says this message is admissible in court in pale gray. I hold the phone like it might shock me if I press too hard. He sent one more concern about our daughter's nap schedule and I answered like an office memo. Noted. I signed a lease on a small apartment over a hair salon. The stairs smell like hairspray and old wood. The windows are tall and have paint on the edges of the glass like someone had been impatient. The bedroom is big enough for a bed and a crib and a laundry basket that tips even when there's nothing in it. I screwed a hook into the wall for my daughter's lovey so we don't lose it, and when she saw it hanging there she clapped like it was art. The landlord handed me 2 keys on a ring with a plastic tag and asked if I wanted the mailbox key too, and my answering yes made my eyes sting in a way that surprised me. I stood in the empty living room and listened to the hum from the salon below and felt my heart beat inside my chest, and it felt like a clock I might be able to set again. At bedtime tonight, my daughter patted the sticker residue on my chest where one of the monitors had been and said, "All done?" I said all done, and it didn't feel like a lie, even though nothing is really done yet. The quiet in this new place is a different quiet. It sounds like the space between deep breaths. I am inventorying things I never thought I would have, a court order that makes a room feel safer, a calendar with boxes that have words like arraignment and orientation and cardiology written in tiny neat letters, a landlord who said welcome like she meant it, a neighbor who texts to ask if I need eggs, a daughter who laughs at pigeons, a grandmother who takes the last piece of toast and then asks for more jam like she's doing me a favor. I am still afraid. But when the lights go off, nobody yells. The dark is just dark, and then it's morning. Update 4. Arraignment was on a screen. I sat at my grandmother's table with the vinyl that sticks to your forearms when it's warm and clicked a link with my name in it. His face showed up in a square that made him look flatter and shinier than real life, a tie that didn't sit right against his neck. The judge's voice came through like a radio that's mostly clear with a little static at the edges. Charges read the way receipts print out. He said not guilty. The prosecutor's box lit up and said words like continued no contact and added conditions and GPS. His lawyer tried to argue supervised visits shouldn't be touched, and the judge looked over his glasses and asked if counsel was aware of the incident reports from the center. He said he was. The judge tightened the rules anyway. I watched the mute icon next to his name glow like a warning light and felt my heart knocking against my ribs like it was trying to be somewhere else. I took my daughter to the park after because she had her shoes on and because my hands needed to do something that wasn't shaking. We watched a boy in a red shirt collect pine cones and put them in his mother's tote like treasure. I put my phone in the stroller pocket and forgot about it until it buzzed with a sound I'd never heard before, thin and urgent. AirTag found moving with you. The words looked like they belonged to someone else's life. I hit the button that makes it play a sound and held my breath. There it was, a tiny beep like a smoke alarm pretending to be a cricket, muffled and close. I crouched next to the stroller and dug. 2 wipes, a crushed cracker, a pink sock that wasn't ours. The beep again, louder when I lifted the edge of the fabric under the basket. It was taped to the inside hem with beige tape, the exact color of the stroller, a neat square cut like someone used a ruler. My daughter was happily trying to feed an invisible squirrel a piece of her granola bar. I peeled the tape back with my thumbnail and a little white circle came up with it, warm from the stroller's belly. My vision went tunneled for a second, the kind of small tunnel that smells like plastic. I put it in a dog poop bag because that was what I had, nodded it twice, and called the detective with my hand doing that thing where it doesn't want to be a hand. He met me in the parking lot of the police station under a sky that couldn't make up its mind about rain. He didn't touch the bag. He put it in another bag with gloved hands and wrote the time down on a clipboard. He said the words subpoena and subscriber information and it will take a few days, and his tone stayed level and made room for my knees to stop shaking. He told me not to go home the way I usually do for a while. I told him I'd already moved. He nodded like this was a math problem with an answer that exists even if you can't see it yet. He said they'd file the violation and notify the prosecutor. I texted the visit center and they wrote back we're reviewing safety, which felt like someone placing both palms on the table so the plates don't rattle off the edge. The center canceled the next visit before I had to pack the diaper bag. Cora called and said she'd walked our daughter through the room again anyway, just to keep it in her body that the place can exist without him in it. She said, you can stop by if you want, to let her pick a sticker. We did. My daughter chose a glitter star and stuck it to my wrist, then to my shirt, then to the middle of my chest like a badge. Cora put a hand on the desk and didn't use words bigger than sticker and okay and see you soon. The room felt smaller without him in it, in a good way, like a cupboard that only holds what you put in it yourself. The landlord put a second deadbolt on the apartment door while my grandmother watched my daughter put clips on a stuffed bear's ears until it looked like it was trying to catch radio stations. The salon hummed below us like the ocean does in movies. At night the smell is hairspray and heat and something sweet, and the floorboards creak like the building is telling you where it's been. My sister came over and we built a shelf with an Allen wrench that kept slipping, and she made the kind of mistakes you only make if you're trying fast because you're excited. We ate slices of pizza off the flattened box and the grease made a heart shape by accident that we both pretended we didn't see because it felt like tempting fate to point it out. The cardiologist said my heart looks like a heart and my blood pressure reads like a person who sleeps most nights, which is not the same as saying I sleep most nights. He pressed the ultrasound wand where it tendered and the gel was cold and clear and smelled faintly like a classroom. I stared at the acoustic panel on the ceiling and decided it looked like the state of Texas if you forget where the panhandle goes. He said stress is not imaginary. He gave me a prescription so small it looked like something you could lose on a kitchen counter if you open the bottle too fast. I took the first pill with water that tasted like the cup I drank from at 3 a.m. when the room still feels like a place and not a story you got lost in. He filed another motion before the ink on the last one felt dry. It landed in a stack on my counter between a postcard from my boss with a drawing of a cactus on it and my grandmother's recipe for soup in a handwriting that is half cursive and half the way children print when they are pretending to be older. The motion said emergency like it was a magic word. The advocate sat with me and we read it out loud the way you read a recipe you're not sure you want to make. We went to court and his lawyer tried to hold up pictures again, small and shiny and supposed to prove something. The judge's mouth went flat and he said we are not litigating through exhibits today. He asked if I'd turned over the AirTag. The prosecutor said yes. The judge kept the schedule as it was and added a line about third-party contact that felt like a lid clicking shut. They arrested him on the violation late in the afternoon when people were walking their dogs and the day had cooled off enough to think. The detective called me and said, we got him on the AirTag and the visit center reports, and the way he said got wasn't victory, it was arithmetic. I stood by the window and watched a woman with a braid try to carry a full-length mirror down the block, reflected sky wobbling. He made bail again but it took longer this time, and the conditions got stacked high enough you could set a drink on them. The app added a new sentence in bolder gray under the text box, this message may be reviewed by the court at any time. He sent one anyway about how I was poisoning our child against him by living upstairs from women with chemicals. I wrote back, please refrain from comments unrelated to daughter's name. The typing dots on his end blipped twice and then vanished. CPS sent a letter in an envelope with my name spelled right and the words case closed in a font that doesn't look like it's allowed to tell you good news. I held it in my hands for a full minute before I opened it because sometimes paper is heavier before it's a thing and lighter after. My grandmother cried in the quiet way that looks like she is smelling something from a long time ago and asked if I wanted more tea. I did. His mother tried to leave a bag on the stoop under the salon sign while my daughter was taking a nap and the hairdresser with the short pink hair intercepted her with a voice that says I've wrangled brides at 6 a.m., you are not special. The bag had a sweater in it, the one I wore when I was pregnant with the stain from when the cap fell off the maple syrup and I didn't catch it in time. The landlord took a photo and sent it to me with the time stamped. I documented. I hate that I am good at it now and I love that I am good at it now and those two feelings can sit next to each other without fighting. Work sent me a login for the new project and it felt like someone slid a glass of water across a table to me without asking if I was thirsty first. I put my laptop on the kitchen counter and typed while my daughter put raisins in a line and knocked them down like bowling pins. We went for a walk after dinner and the wind hit my face with just enough bite to make me think about buying a real coat this year. The salon lights blinked off one by one below us, like someone tapping a piano with just their index finger. Tonight, my daughter fell asleep with her hand in my hair, and when I moved it gently away her fingers slid like seaweed and then curled into a fist on the pillow. I found the glitter from the sticker on my wrist 2 showers later, a tiny galaxy that clung to the inside of my elbow. The quiet in this place keeps surprising me. It doesn't press. It makes room. The dark is a bowl I can put things in and take them back out. When my phone lights up on the counter, I can look at it or I can let it blink itself to sleep, and nothing explodes. I can feel my heart beating and it doesn't feel like it's asking me to run.